The silent predator. The vast chambers of the Hegemony Council stretched upward like a cathedral of steel and crystal, housing representatives from over 300 conquered worlds. High Chancellor Vorthen stood at the center podium, his four arms gesturing dramatically as holographic displays showed their empire spanning half the galaxy. For 6,000 years, the hegemony had expanded through overwhelming force. Their doctrine was simple and effective. They possessed the largest warships, the most powerful weapons, and the most numerous armies. When they arrived at a new world, resistance crumbled within days, sometimes hours. "The reports from Sector 9 are concerning," announced War Minister Kex, his scaled hide reflecting the chamber's blue lighting. "An unknown species has established colonies in 7 systems we had marked for expansion." Vorthen's 6 eyes narrowed, a gesture that had preceded the destruction of countless civilizations. "Have they responded to our sovereignty claims?" "They call themselves humans, High Chancellor. They claim these are uninhabited systems open for colonization under galactic law." A ripple of disdainful laughter echoed through the chamber. Galactic law was what the hegemony decided it was. "Deploy the 7th Armada," Vorthen commanded. "Teach these humans their place in the natural order." 3 weeks later, the hegemony's 7th Armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the disputed territory. 400 warships, each bristling with enough firepower to crack continental plates, moved in perfect formation toward the human colony on Kepler 438 bits. Admiral Fox stood aboard the flagship Decimator, watching tactical displays with satisfaction. The humans had only a dozen small vessels in orbit, none larger than a hegemony destroyer. This would be another swift victory to add to their collection. "Detecting an incoming transmission," reported the communications officer. The main view screen activated, revealing a human face. The being had dark hair streaked with gray, brown skin, and eyes that seemed to hold depths Fox couldn't fathom. The nameplate read Captain Rodriguez, U.S. Whisper. "Hegemony vessels, you are entering human-protected space. We ask that you reconsider your approach. Violence benefits no one." Fox's mandibles clicked in amusement. "This is Admiral Fox of the Hegemony 7th Armada. You will surrender immediately or face annihilation. Your species will learn to serve, as all others have before you." Rodriguez's expression didn't change. "Admiral, I encourage you to scan our vessel carefully before making threats you may regret. 1 small ship against 400. Your courage is admirable but foolish, human." 1 ship. Rodriguez smiled slightly. "Who said anything about 1 ship?" Fox gestured to his weapons officer. "Target their vessel. Show them the price of death." The scanner operator interrupted with a strangled gasp. "Admiral, the human ship, it's not reading properly. Our sensors show it exists in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Explain." I cannot, sir. It appears to be both here and not here. The readings make no sense." Rodriguez's voice carried a tone of patient explanation. "Admiral Fox, humanity took a different path to the stars. While others built bigger weapons, we learned to think smaller. While others sought to dominate space, we sought to understand it." "Mystical nonsense," Fox spat. "All ships, prepare tow." Alarms suddenly blared across the bridge. 3 hegemony destroyers on the fleet's flank had vanished from sensors. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply gone. "Where are my ships?" Fox roared. "Unknown." "Admiral," the tactical officer stammered. "They disappeared without any energy discharge or debris. It's as if they never existed." Rodriguez leaned forward slightly. "They're safe, Admiral. Relocated to a pocket dimension we've prepared. No harm has come to your crews. We prefer to avoid casualties when possible." More alarms sounded. A dozen more ships had vanished, including 2 battlecruisers. The mighty 7th Armada was being dismantled without a single shot being fired. "Impossible." Fox's voice cracked. "What kind of weapon is this?" "Not a weapon, Admiral. A defense. Your concept of warfare relies on size, on power, on overwhelming force. But what good are planet-cracking guns against an enemy that exists between the spaces you can see? The human ship on screen began to shimmer, its outline becoming indistinct. Where one vessel had been, dozens of quantum shadows appeared, each one targeting the hegemony ship. Humans spent 50 years preparing for this moment, Rodriguez continued. Not building larger fleets, but understanding the fundamental nature of reality itself. We weaponized quantum uncertainty, turned Heisenberg's principle into our shield. Thok watched helplessly as more ships vanished. His mighty armada, terror of 100 worlds, was being undone by an enemy that defied comprehension. All ships, retreat, he finally ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. As the remaining hegemony vessels began their withdrawal, Rodriguez spoke one final time. Tell your leaders that humanity seeks peace, Admiral, but we will defend ourselves with means beyond your current understanding. The age of conquest through brute force is ending. The transmission cut, leaving Thok staring at empty space where 2/3 of his fleet had been. In a single encounter, everything the hegemony believed about warfare had been shattered. Back in the council chambers, High Chancellor Vorthin listened to Thok's report in stunned silence. For the first time in 6 millennia, the hegemony had encountered something they couldn't simply overwhelm with superior firepower. How do we fight an enemy we cannot see? Asked War Minister Kex, his voice subdued. An enemy that makes our ships simply cease to be. Vorthin stood slowly, his ancient joints creaking. Perhaps it is time we learn to think differently about strength. Send an envoy to these humans. Let us understand what we face before we face it again. The age of hegemony supremacy through force had met its match. Not in a bigger gun or a stronger shield, but in a species that had chosen to master the very fabric of reality itself. The galaxy would never be the same. The Quantum Dance. 3 months after the 7th Armada's humiliating retreat, the Hegemony Council convened an emergency session. High Chancellor Vorthin faced mounting pressure from military hardliners who refused to accept that centuries of dominance could be challenged by what they saw as primitive newcomers. You speak of ghosts and quantum mysteries, growled General Zerak, commander of the elite First Guard. Give me the Grand Fleet, all 1,000 ships, and I will show these humans the true meaning of power. War Minister Kex shifted uneasily. General, perhaps we should consider the diplomatic option. If their technology truly transcends our understanding. There is no technology beyond the reach of hegemony might. Zerak slammed his armored fist on the table. We have crushed civilizations with antimatter cannons and singularity weapons. These humans hide behind tricks and illusions. Vorthin raised a claw for silence. Despite his own doubts, he couldn't appear weak before the council. The hegemony's entire social structure depended on their perceived invincibility. General Zerak, you have my authorization. Take the Grand Fleet. But remember, Admiral Thok was no novice, and he lost 2/3 of his armada without firing a shot. Zerak's 6 eyes blazed with confidence. Thok was unprepared. I know what to expect. 2 weeks later, the largest fleet in hegemony history emerged from hyperspace at the edge of human territory. 1,000 capital ships, supported by 3,000 escorts and auxiliaries, formed a wall of metal and energy weapons that stretched across light minutes of space. General Zerak stood aboard the super dreadnought Extinction, a vessel so massive it generated its own gravitational anomalies. Around him, the finest military minds of the hegemony prepared for what they believed would be the final lesson humanity needed. Scanning human positions, reported the sensor chief, detecting 12 vessels in standard defensive formation around their colony world. 12 ships, Zarak scoffed. They insult us with this pathetic display. All vessels, advance in hammer formation. Prepare for total planetary bombardment if they resist. As the massive fleet moved forward, a familiar face appeared on the communication screen. Captain Rodriguez looked unchanged, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the overwhelming force approaching his position. "General Zarak, I presume. We meet again under unfortunate circumstances. I urge you to reconsider this action. Your tricks won't work twice, human. I've equipped my fleet with quantum sensors, dimensional anchors, and reality stabilizers. Whatever game you played with Admiral Thok ends now." Rodriguez nodded slowly. "I see. You've adapted your technology to counter what you observed. Impressive. But tell me, General, what makes you think we've shown you everything?" Before Zarak could respond, space itself seemed to ripple. The human vessels began to blur, but not in the same way as before. They were multiplying. Where 12 ships had been, now there were dozens, then hundreds, each one a perfect quantum copy existing in parallel states. "Impossible," the sensor chief gasped. "They're generating quantum echoes, but our reality stabilizers should prevent." "Should prevent what you've seen before," Rodriguez interrupted, his image now appearing on screens throughout the hegemony fleet. "You prepared for yesterday's demonstration. Let me show you today's lesson." The space between the fleets began to distort. Not the subtle quantum uncertainty from before, but massive gravitational waves that bent light itself. Stars in the background warped and twisted as humanity revealed another aspect of their mastery over space-time. "You measured strength in size," Rodriguez continued. "We measured it in understanding. While you built bigger ships, we learned to fold space. While you created more powerful weapons, we learned to step outside the dimension where those weapons function." The U.S. Whisper suddenly appeared directly in the center of the hegemony formation, impossible as that should have been with their overlapping shields and defensive grids. But it wasn't just one ship. It was thousands of quantum iterations, each one targeting a specific hegemony vessel. Zarak watched in horror as his mighty fleet began to phase out of normal space. Not destroyed, not damaged, but shifted into parallel dimensions where their weapons couldn't function, their engines couldn't propel them, their crews existed in states of quantum uncertainty. "Fire everything," Zarak commanded desperately. "All weapons, maximum yield." The space around the Grand Fleet erupted in a devastating display of firepower. Antimatter beams, gravitic missiles, and exotic energy weapons lit up the void. But the human vessels weren't there to hit. They existed in the spaces between spaces, in dimensions perpendicular to normal reality. "Your weapons are impressive," Rodriguez observed. "In conventional warfare, they would be unstoppable. But we don't fight conventional wars. We prevent them." One by one, the greatest warships ever built by the hegemony were relocated to pocket universes, their crews unharmed but completely neutralized. The extinction itself began to phase, its massive bulk becoming translucent. "Wait," Zarak shouted, his pride finally cracking. "What do you want? Terms? Surrender? Treaties?" Rodriguez's expression softened slightly. "We want nothing from you, General. We don't seek empire or dominion. We simply wish to exist peacefully, to explore and grow without the threat of extinction hanging over every new species we meet." As the last of the Grand Fleet dissolved into quantum probability, Rodriguez delivered his final message. "Return to your leaders with this truth. The age of might making right is over. Humanity offers partnership, not subjugation. We'll defend ourselves and others from aggression, but we'd prefer to share knowledge and friendship." The extinction rematerialized alone in hegemony space, its crew shaken but unharmed. General Zarak stood in silence on his bridge, trying to process what had occurred. In 2 encounters, humanity had neutralized over 1,400 hegemony warships without killing a single being. High Chancellor Vorthan received the news with something approaching relief. For the first time in his long life, he questioned the foundation of hegemony society. Perhaps there were other forms of strength beyond military might. "Send a diplomatic vessel to human space," he ordered quietly. Tell them the hegemony wishes to discuss a new relationship." War Minister Kex leaned closer. "High Chancellor, the military caste will resist any appearance of weakness. Is it weakness to evolve, old friend? Or is it wisdom to recognize when the universe has presented us with a mirror to our own limitations? The diplomatic vessel Harmony's Edge departed the next day, carrying not warriors but scholars, scientists, and genuine diplomats. Aboard was Ambassador Lyra, chosen for her ability to think beyond traditional hegemony paradigms. When she arrived in human space, she was greeted not by warships but by a research vessel. Captain Rodriguez himself came aboard to escort her to Earth, humanity's homeworld. "I must confess," Lyra said during their journey, "I don't understand how your species developed such technology in mere decades when it took us millennia to reach our current level." Rodriguez smiled. "Different perspectives lead to different solutions. Your species focused on mastering energy and matter. We focused on understanding the nature of reality itself. Both paths have merit. But why share this with us now? You could have conquered the galaxy with such power." "Could have, perhaps. But to what end?" "Humanity learned from its own history that empires built on force eventually crumble. We chose instead to be guardians, to ensure that no species need ever fear extinction from another." As Earth came into view, a blue-green jewel hanging in space, Lyra felt something she hadn't experienced in centuries: hope. Perhaps the greatest strength wasn't in domination, but in the courage to choose a different path. The quantum dance between humanity and the hegemony had ended not with conquest, but with the first steps toward genuine understanding. The galaxy stood on the threshold of a new age, one where might served right, rather than defining it.